This screencast is the first in a series that provides an introduction to field data entry for asbestos survey by use of a tablet computer. XYZ Environmental has been doing pre-demolition asbestos surveys of houses and other small buildings, basically 1 to 2 day jobs at most, entering data on paper and clipboard. Now they've won their first big brownfield project. It's a large abandoned building built in the 1940s. They've scoped it out and it looks like a solid week of field work with about 50 to 100 functional spaces, and it's just loaded with asbestos and suspect materials that need to be characterized and quantified prior to demolition. They realized they could end up generating 50 to 100 pages of data tables, and they could end up spending more time flipping through their pages of paper than actually sampling. So they call Freelance Envirotech to get them started on an electronic field data entry system. So this is one example of how it can be done. Basically, you need a field tablet computer, ideally one that you can carry around and draw right on the screen. Otherwise, a laptop mounted on a projector cart could work. Of course, abandoned buildings are often not smooth concrete floors, but are covered in what I call brownfield schmegma, which is typically 2 parts damp ceiling panel debris, 1 part broken fluorescent bulb glass, and 1 part, well, you just don't want to know. So, here's what I use. This rig is based on, well, a Burley. What else? And with it, it's pretty stable when everything is bungeed down and works pretty well on rough floors. And below it, there's room to store all your field gear. It isn't pretty, but then again, this is hazmat work after all. You can plan on running a field computer about 4 hours off of a battery and then recharging or swapping the battery over your lunch break. Most smaller handheld devices don't support all of the advanced Excel functionality, but eventually they will, so handhelds can be an option as well. So let's jump into our HA data table. So we begin by entering our first material, HA number 1, and now we have to choose from the EPA material class menu, so SM for surfacing, and then we can choose from all the surfacing types. We'll put in soft acoustical plaster, and then we can enter on the keyboard our description, and then friability, determination status, S for sampled, asbestos content if we knew it, and then units, how we are going to quantify it. And all these drop-down menus have been entered previously on the Independent Menus tab. Let's go on to our next material, number 2. What else do we see? Well, we want to enter a fire door. So in this system, fire doors are under Other, and you'll notice the miscellaneous material menu is divided into 5 categories. And the reason for this is because there are so many different miscellaneous materials, it's much easier to find what you're looking for if you've divided them into subcategories. So we'll find fire doors under Other. Then again, enter our description on the keyboard. Friability. Determination status, A for assumed at this point. And the units for quantification. Next material, what do we see? 3. Flooring. It's going to be under floor, and our flooring is 9x9 floor tile. And we can enter in, say, pink, black mastic. Friability. Termination status, we're cutting a few corners here, so we'll say we're going to assume the tile and sample the mastic. That's A and S. And then our units that we're going to quantify, SF, and then we can always add some notes if we need to for reference. So far this is pretty similar to a paper and clipboard system, but here's the additional time-saving twist. We're going to use an HA mnemonic to help us remember each of these materials. Rather than trying to remember things by HA number, we'll use something that's a little bit easier to remember. So for example, with the acoustical plaster, why don't we call it SP_1. For a fire door, how can we remember the fire door? How about D for door underscore M for metal and 9 by 9 pink tile? We know there's going to be a lot of 9 by 9, but let's say we use 9 underscore and then the letter for each color, so P for pink. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to name the range for each mnemonic. So for example, we're going to select these cells here. We're going to go up and we're going to type in the name range box so that this range of cells now has the name of that mnemonic. Same here with the metal fire door, and so forth. And again, this HA mnemonic is just a shortcut device that will be explained in the following screencast. So this system is pretty similar, but you can, of course, look up just materials that you want. For example, if you want to just pull up all your 9 by 9s, you can come through and filter it on the fly. For example, um, if you want to just look at all your friables, you can filter accordingly. So don't confuse these header filter boxes with the drop-down menu boxes, even though they look fairly similar. So that concludes our first installment, and join us again for the next one when we will explain how these data are linked to the functional data table.